What was your I don't get paid enough for this moment at work? Story 1. When I worked at McDonald's, I found out we didn't get paid for closing. We got paid until the store closed, so if it took us an extra hour or two to close, that was unpaid. I wish I knew what I know now because that is an open and shut case, but at the time, I was young and dumb. My first paycheck, I noticed I had a ton of missing hours. So when I asked my boss about it, she told me we only got paid until the store closed. So that night I walked out when the store closed, and they tried to guilt me into staying because the other team members need me. Yeah, screw that. I don't work for free. Sorry. Especially when I'm already making minimum wage. No thanks, not gonna happen. Story 2. A camp director became upset with all the lifeguards because we told her we wouldn't be coming back next summer due to various reasons such as taking summer courses, moving to a different city, and accepting a head guard position at another camp. None of us hated the current camp, we simply had other obligations. During a group meeting, we were told that we could leave if we weren't happy, and the following Friday, the director praised us for doing a great job and everyone being happy at the lake. However, the next Tuesday, she called us in individually and told us that we weren't working hard enough and saw us slacking off all the time. At lunchtime on Tuesday, all of the lifeguards walked into her office and told her off in front of the camp owner, and then we all went for a beer in my Ford Focus. That night, we received a message from the camp owner asking us to call him back, and it turned out that he had called all of us. We called him back the following day and explained what happened, and he asked us to reconsider and offered us a $5 an hour raise and direct reporting to him. After discussing it, we agreed on the condition that the director apologize to us at a staff meeting. She refused and threw a tantrum, which led to the camp owner firing her on the spot and escorting her off the property. Finally, we were able to reopen the lake. Barb, screw you. This story literally turns from we don't get paid enough for this to we actually do get paid enough now that you gave us a $5 an hour raise and fired our boss. If it was that easy to just report directly to the camp owner after the fact, it does seem like firing the manager was a long time coming. Clearly, the owner saw that firing one person and passing the savings on to the more important life-saving staff was the right choice. So as much as they didn't like Barb, it actually was her position where the money for the raises was likely found. So it's a win-win. Story 3. Countless times at a go-kart place, summer job, where I work, I've had to put up with special needs kids whose caretakers or parents dropped them off and drove off because they wanted a break from them. These kids and adults have a mental age of anywhere from 3 to 15, and many times they are unable to follow the directions that we provide or even listen to us. They are not only a danger to themselves, but to the other riders and to us, the staff. An easy solution to this would be for their parents to ride with them in a double and to drive for them, allowing them to have fun without having to put anyone in danger. However, that costs more money, and they don't want to, one parent even said. Why can't you just ride with them? And when I asked if she would be comfortable with other people, she said that she wasn't. I wanted to call her a bad parent, but I didn't want to lose my job. We can't deny them as they have the physical age to ride, but are hopefully putting rules in place to require parents of children with special needs to ride with their parents. Story 4. I worked at a Toyota service department for a few months. It was terrible in general, but one day was the worst. During the week, I had a nail go straight through my foot, so I bandaged it up and have to walk around to get everything. Probably 100 yards to the car wash, 40 yards to the shop, etc. My team for Saturday, 4 people, had one person quit on Wednesday, and one person had a funeral to leave early for. The other guy was new, so he was slow to get stuff done. My boss says he'll come in and help, and Wednesday we lock it at 60 appointments since we have short staff up front and back. We do take walk-ins too, and Thursday it's at 80, and we tell our boss to lock that. Again on Friday before closing we see 110 appointments. He never locked it. Come Saturday morning we had 130 appointments from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I had to walk around a lot and ended up bleeding through 3 pairs of socks and bandages. I had to chase down about 80% of our customers' cars because our porters were goofing off. I had 53 tickets open at 12 p.m., and we had a 4-hour wait for walk-ins and 2 with appointments. Haven't had any lunch or a snack since they banned foods and drinks at our desk, and my friend is about to leave for the funeral, so I will now have to cover his work. And my boss leaves for lunch throwing his 20-ish tickets on my desk. So I'm now 110 tickets deep, helping the new guy with stuff, moving cars, and trying not to pass out. And oh, did I mention it was 95 degrees outside, no air conditioning in our covered area, which was not inside, and 90% humidity? We didn't even get a breeze. Can't have snacks or drinks at our desk either. It gets to 3 p.m. and I'm rescheduling people, trying to get everyone out when their cars are done, but have to limp them down to pull them in front to leave after they pay. My boss still isn't back, and the new guy now quits. I end up getting in one car, and then blood from my sock drips onto our paper mats in the car. I cleaned everything out, vacuumed the car, washed it, and pulled it up. And the customer went crazy that she saw blood on the disposable paper mat, about the wait, not getting a discount for her non-appointment service, and demanded to speak to my manager. That was it. Called him up and sent him a voicemail. I explained it to his mailbox and then called the GM to explain that I have been alone for about 3 hours, dealing with an uncapped amount of customers. 5 technicians walked out, I'm still not recovered from my workplace injury, and that I'm finishing up my paperwork to take my lunch break at 4 p.m. The boss shows up when I'm about to leave to eat my lunch I brought, knowing that their provided lunch would be gone before I could set foot in the break room. He told me that in our state, I'm not even legally allowed a lunch break during a shift, and I have to stay to finish out the customers on my ticket. I mentioned being here since 6 a.m., pre-printing everything, saying, hey, I just need to relax, and he said, you didn't even clock in this morning, so unless you do what I say, you aren't getting paid. Now, service advisors are paid commission here, and percents of parts profit for stuff sold. I didn't even get 10 cents an hour. So, I walked to my station, removed all of everyone's login copies of my permissions, deleted all my notes, deleted all of my warranty macros, all the spreadsheets, and reset every custom line I added to our programs before I removed my admin permissions. Walked out and got a call when I got to my car asking, why isn't your login able to collect credit cards? So he had to either write down credit card info, take cash or checks, or let them go. My GM asked me to come back at a pay raise and less hours, but I knew that was BS. My boss ended up getting let go the following month since he couldn't get things back up to speed. My good friend moved to Mercedes parts, so he's happy. I ended up going to BMW for a bit after that and handled a few other franchises later. I know that people need to get their car fixed and everything, but at what point do you draw the line and just shut the place down and stop taking reservations? Because you have a guy that literally had a nail go through their foot and they're bleeding on everything. I'm pretty sure there are laws which prohibit an employee from continuing to work like that after they're being injured, right? Now, I'm not an expert myself, but that does seem like common sense. In the comments, can someone advise if the dealership has a right to make someone keep working after that kind of injury? Story 5. I worked for the university's horse barn as a teenager. They had some pretty strict rules that I was not used to at other places. Like, the horses were only allowed outside for 2 hours, no matter what. Could be the most beautiful day outside, and we would have to stop everything that we were doing to bring them into their stalls. They were only ever allowed 2 squirts of fly spray, which didn't even cover their butts. Required to have their halters on 24/7, even when in the stalls at night. Our boss had clearly zero experience with animals, or if he did, he just didn't care. One day, while one of the horses was having his feet trimmed, my boss went to pull a weed whacker from the bottom of the shelf directly next to where the horse was standing. A lot like Jenga, the entire closet of machinery fell into the horse, causing him to kick the farrier and run. Ever since that incident, the horse was a mess, so instead of hiring a trainer to fix the problem, they just locked him up in the stall, all day, 24/7. I quit shortly after that, and I still wonder how that horse is doing. Story 6. A few years ago into my flying career, so definitely not earning what people think pilots earn, I was asked to take a bunch of handicapped children and their caregivers for a small 10-minute flight in a small twin-prop aircraft. All seemed to be going well until after landing when I smelt the unmistakable stench of vomit. I looked around and all the passengers were looking horrified as the inside of the plane had been covered in what I was told used to be strawberry milkshake. I then had to vacuum and wash down the carpet in the plane, and the vacuum died after picking up a large amount of this lumpy, white substance, and it started to drip back down the nozzle. It was a warm day, and that didn't make the smell any better. Story 7. Was making $2 above minimum wage for a furniture rental store. I was supposed to be a manager in training, but they screwed me and made me a jack of all trades. So one day they asked me to help out on repo runs and get back furniture from people who didn't pay. The first red flag was going into an area and taking away a fridge from a family and then watching them take all their food out for their kids and getting friends to keep it cold. The nail in the coffin, though, was going to someone's house at 10 p.m. at night, waking up the family, going into the bedroom of a sleeping child to wake him up so that we could take away his bed as his parents didn't pay for it. As someone with young children at the time, I was disgusted in what I was doing. I was putting in 18-hour days doing these repossessions, and I asked my district manager what I would be getting as compensation, as I've had to do some really terrible things. She promised I would be well compensated for saving the company a lot of money and product. Yeah, I got a $15 gift card to buy alcohol, and I don't drink. Well, now I feel like I've been missing out in the world because I've received gift cards before, but not once has anyone ever gifted me an alcohol gift card. What the heck? Why are my friends and family holding out on me like that? Really hats off to this person, though, for at least having a conscience and realizing that it is time to move on. I also feel like repoing people's furniture in the middle of the night does pose some safety risks as well. I wouldn't be too happy if someone tried to take my furniture at night either. Story 8. I work in security, and a bit under a year ago, I worked at some kind of public TV event. My job was to keep people without passes out of a specific area, which was intended for those working behind the scenes to kick back and relax and get their lunches and whatnot. Anyway, the only ones I was allowed entrance were people with passes and other security folks. But then word from above came that the exception was to be made for some kind of supposedly famous child music group. I had no idea what they looked like, so 4 kids and their parents walk up and I stop them. "Don't you know who these are?" quickly followed, and eventually it got cleared up. And every time after they kept bringing in more friends and family members, and the same song and dance continued. Ugh. Story 9. I was one of 50 or so 12 to 17-year-olds working on this farm, harvesting tobacco. Most of the kids were illegal, but I was just 17 and homeless and couldn't get a job because I didn't have an ID or any paperwork. I started hanging out with the Hispanics because they were the ones who got under-the-table jobs. We got there at 6, lunch at 1, leave at 8. Now it's summer, and it's the heat of the day a couple hours after lunch, and this young girl, not even more than 14, working alongside me, suddenly passes out and will not wake up. I called for help, and one of the guys watching over us walked over all slow and unconcerned. "Can you wake her up?" I said I couldn't. "All right, well, let's bring her to the house." So I picked her up and carried her there, and he had me set her down by a tree in the shade and then disappeared into the house. I didn't know what to do, and I'm panicking. So I pour water on her forehead and take her long sleeves off. You have to cover every part of your skin when working with that much tobacco, or else you'll get sick. And a few minutes pass. She's breathing rapidly and shallow, and I'm still freaking out. So I yell to this other guy who's supervising us, and he just says, "Did someone call an ambulance?" I said, "No." And he said, "Crap." So he calls the ambulance and then comes over and basically just watches me as I try to cool this girl down. As soon as they get there, all the supervisors tell me to get back to work, and I don't get to talk to the EMTs. I never saw them ask any of the other Hispanic kids for her name or anything. I don't know if she came there alone or they just didn't notice. My supervisor later told me the EMTs said that she was having a serious heat stroke. Never heard how she turned out. I just went back to work. It was pretty good money compared to what I was used to. And they used to make us leave our water jugs by the barn because they thought that it slowed us down too much with all of our hydration, allowing us about 10 minutes every 2 hours to drink up. We had to wear hot, long sleeves and gloves and jeans. And I remember drinking so much water that I threw up, and then drinking more because I just lost all of it. That really taught me how much a hat helps you when you're in the sun all day. There were thousands of acres that all needed to be harvested and put in less than 2 weeks, and we did it in little more than 4 days. Payment was $50 a day. That's the hardest I've ever worked. Life isn't worth living if you work that hard. Those kids, though, they were insane. Never saw them complain. They just sing and joke if they said anything. And that girl was dead silent up until the heat stroke. I still remember that. I don't know if places like that are still around, but they should not be. Story 10. I used to work as a help desk contractor at a nuclear power company in Pennsylvania. We were phone support, and our job tended to have a lot of downtime. Now, one day my boss comes in and tells everyone that they can no longer browse the web at work. The customer is always watching, and we need to always be focused on the job. Okay, fair enough. A few days later, "Hey, we noticed that you guys have started to bring in books because you can't browse the web anymore. Given that books are a form of entertainment, we can't have people reading at work while waiting on a call to come in. So no more books." Okay, so cut to the next week. "And guys, unless we're talking about work tickets, we can't have people chatting with one another. The customer sees this, and it makes it look like we're just sitting around chatting and not doing our job. So please, try not to talk to your coworkers unless it's related to the job." The next day, she comes in and tells us that we're not allowed to use our phones at work either. Now, at this point, everyone has had enough, and people start to rebel. We ended up turning off our monitors and staring at blank screens while waiting for calls to come. The customer can clearly see this, and when a call comes in, we turn the monitors back on, do the job, hang up, and then shut them down again. We'd been instructed to sit and wait for calls like a good boy, and nothing else. Management ultimately reversed this BS policy after about 2 weeks because it apparently looked creepy from the outside looking in. Well, yeah, that was kind of the point. If we're going to be treated like robots, we'll work like robots. Almost a third of the team ended up walking for another job shortly after they did this. I share similar frustrations with IT departments. I don't know why it is so hard to understand that it can actually help productivity to allow people to handle reasonable personal things while at work. Your life doesn't stop just because you're at work, and sometimes people just need a quick break at their computer to recharge. Maybe they want to check their personal email or read a blog or read the news, something. But whenever you can stay caught up with your personal stuff, the more you can focus on your job than being focused on what's going on at home. Story 11. Maybe I'm a jerk. I don't know. I've been a network engineer and IT consultant for the better part of 20 years. I was hired on as a consultant for a prestigious architectural firm to get their infrastructure whipped into shape. Now, they had some antiquated hardware running up to support some very bad habits surrounding email and file sharing on their network. It was a job I was working at several days a week for a couple of years. One of the partners kept asking me to fix his email. He kept every email in his inbox rather than archiving or deleting what he didn't need or even moving into separate folders. So, fix for him meant going to his inbox and manually dragging a year's worth of emails somewhere that they wouldn't totally slow down his Outlook. So after doing this a few times for him, I sat with him and showed him how to do this himself. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to drag and drop, but just some time to wait for everything to get moved. A few months later, he sends me an email to come fix his emails again. So I finally replied that I was busy doing something with the network and he could just do it himself, just like I've showed him previously. That day, I was fired and asked not to return. Story 12. I work in retail at a shoe store, so my job is already so low paying, but I do my job well and my manager loves me for good reason. 2 of my coworkers and I are behind the counter just hanging out because there aren't any customers in the store. This guy walks into the store and straight to the counter, points at me and demands that I help him. So I do. Now I'm a little annoyed, but I'm still very nice to him. He threw shoes around when he didn't get them to fit right, and then he made me fill out his order again because I didn't capitalize the first letters of his name, which made him go on a rant about the origin of his name and heritage, blah, blah. He lectured me for not asking for his name when he walked through the door. He felt very entitled and was really condescending about everything. But I gritted my teeth, smiled, and even laughed at his so-called jokes. The next time he came into the store, he finds help from another coworker and complained to her about me, deliberately lying about the whole experience. He claimed I yelled at him the whole time and then tells her she shouldn't be in this business if that's how she's going to act. Yeah, dude, because selling shoes is my passion. I get paid enough to help people buy shoes, but not to kiss their feet. Now imagine being so angry and insecure with yourself that you feel the need to walk into a shoe store and harass the staff. That will raise your self-confidence for sure. Somebody apparently just either hates shoes or had some sort of trauma occur in a shoe store. It is pretty sick that sometimes people just feel the need to be a total jerk. Since this person was such a jerk, I would like to think that they suffered from a foot fungus or something embarrassing like that. Or maybe some webbed feet. I don't know.